You know, having worked in sustainability and in greenhouse gas emissions, I don't know why the coffee one slipped in there. I also did the dairy one with the dairy industry, and it's a great challenge. But I agree with you totally, Kim, that we've got to use the messages carefully. We've got to. Oh, they're telling me to slow down. The ladies behind the glass. They're behind a glass for a reason, maybe. Okay, I will slow down. I'm just enthusiastic about this topic, and it's great. So. Look, we've been working on this for a while, and we'll go straight into it because I know you all want to get to the drinks reception after and not coffee. Just a bit of background on SAI Platform, Sustainable Agriculture Initiative. It was established in 2002 by food manufacturing organisations that said they got together. It was Unilever, Danone and Nestle. And they said, look, if we don't have a sustainable supply of raw materials, we do not have a sustainable business. So what SAI Platform is about getting food manufacturing companies round a table to work pre-competitively on global sustainability issues. We're all facing the same challenges. Everyone in this room here is facing sustainability challenges. We'll be facing similar ones to the one person sitting next to them. And it's about the pre-competitive and collaborative effort that can actually move us further forward and faster. And I think that's a key thing when you talk about the challenges we have as food manufacturing businesses. And I tell you, every day, I said to someone on the weekend when I was with them, I said, you know, it's not just dairy and it's not just beef. It's food in the spotlight all the time. The front page of every newspaper has a food challenge there. So it isn't just us, but at the same time, we are competing. We have to make sure our shop is in order. And this is what platforms like this enable us to do. We've got 61 food-producing companies as members, 48 food-producing companies as members, and then we have what's called affiliate members, who are not food-producing companies, but we feel it's important to have them at the table to help us move forward, to help us understand the situation about how we can move forward pre-competitively, but actually move faster forward with their input. So they're not actually food-producing companies, but it's important we have them at the table. We have 5 commodity working groups. We've got beef, we've got dairy, we've got coffee, and you can see them there. Commodity-specific working groups, but some areas we have to go beyond that. And we've got some cross-cutting committees as well, so biodiversity, water, and the farm sustainability assessment, which I'm going to talk to you about today, because they cut across all the commodity areas. They're relevant to all. And we do get involved in other work streams. One thing SAI Platform will not do is if there's another organisation out there working on a specific area, they won't do that. They'll try and support that organisation in doing that for the best interests of the sector, because we can all go and do the same work, investing money, time, effort, and come out with similar answers, slightly different, and we could have got there a lot faster if we collaborated. One thing I must emphasise about SAI Platform is it stops at the farm gate. It's purely sustainable agriculture. It's not the whole supply chain. We focus on sustainable agricultural practices. And there's a slide with our members, and you'll recognise many of the logos up there. We've got large businesses, multinationals, and we go right down to very small organisations, and even localised industry associations as well. It's so important we get them involved. And this is so much so on the beef working group, which I'll show you in a minute. One thing we've done to keep us focused is define sustainable agriculture, and it's so important to make sure we're all going in the same direction. We've done some work recently in the dairy sustainability space, and we got an independent consultant to look at us and said, look, there's some great stuff going out there on sustainability in dairy, but you're all not going in the same direction. You're not under the one vision. At least SAI Platform, what they do is for all their members, they make sure we're focused on the one vision. What are we working towards? And one of the key things the beef working group has done, the newest working group established in 2012, was actually they got this changed. They took this to the General Assembly and said, actually, we want to see welfare of farmed animals in our vision, because that's what we're about. We see that as important, and the General Assembly unanimously accepted that change. Most organisations, for some reason, I don't think there's a rule out there, seem to have a vision for their 2020 ambitions on greenhouse gas or whether it's sustainability. So, hey, let's join the pack. Okay? But we're about getting sustainable practices embedded into farming systems. And one of the challenges we've had, and one of the challenges I face in my daily work, is when I'm talking to NGOs, when I'm talking to World Bank or FAO, they say, Brian, stop telling me about what you're doing. Tell me what a difference you're making. And I think that's what we've got to move towards now. We've got to move towards this, instead of putting programs out there that give us nice, warm feelings in our heart, let's get programs that are actually able to be quantified and know that we're making a difference. Because for us who are investing time and effort into these things, we need to know if they're not working as well. So there's our beef working group that we established. These are some of our cards from 2 years ago. But these guys worked together, they came together, we've got a mix there of associations and meat processors, predominantly European. SAI Platform is a global organisation, but our working group tends to be pretty European, although we do have New Zealand beef and lamb in there. So we do have those guys keeping an eye on us and making sure we've got the Southern Hemisphere vision there, but also we'd love some from this side of the world as well. But predominantly European, so that's the focus we're taking to meet the needs of our members. The members decide the work programs, not SAI Platform. The members tell us which direction they want to go. And another thing that we've done in SAI Platform that the beef working group were instrumental in doing is getting others involved. It's for food manufacturers, but actually the beef working group said we're not going to have a group unless we can have retailers involved, because we don't want to be travelling over here with our sustainability efforts if the retailers want us over here. So retailers currently cannot, well now they can, in the last 6 months they're able to become members of SAI Platform now. But prior to that, what we said is they could become part of our work as knowledge exchange partners. So they got them involved. So there is an opportunity for those organisations who cannot be normal members. What SAI Platform does, is, and it has cutting across the commodity groups, is each of the groups, and the beef being the latest one over here, is actually develops what's called principles and practices of sustainable dairy farming, or beef farming, or arable crops, or fruit and veg. And these principles, they're as what SAI Platform sees as the key principles of sustainable farming. And what we have running through these is a consistency. So whether you pick up the arable crops or whether you pick up the beef one, there's a consistency running through them in terms of sustainable principles of production. The practices will be slightly different. The practices can be locally produced. What we've put in there is actually more global views, but there's nothing to stop an organisation, a member organisation, saying actually, so long as we're working to that principle, we can put these practices in that meet our local needs. So we developed these and launched these in 2013. So that was our first, it only took us a year after formation. Credit to the guys sitting around the table. They weren't used to working pre-competitively and collaboratively on these things, and they pulled it together and they worked on this and made sure they had that consistent vision. And basically what it covers, sustainable farming systems, economic sustainability, social sustainability, and environmental sustainability. So all the pillars we've been talking about at this conference are covered off in the principles and practices. What we now got to do is transfer that into the implementation model, and that's the challenge we've had about demonstrating as a sector the difference we're making, as opposed to saying we've got these great principles and practices, but nobody's using them. So we've got to make that transition. And here's an example from the beef principles that covers off the key criteria over here, whether it's animal health, welfare and genetics, or whether it's human rights down here. SAI is a global operator. It's not just for the developed world, but actually it's quite interesting in my travels for other hats I wear. I recognise that we still have issues, the same issues in different parts of the world. I was talking to a guy from India recently, and one of the challenges we have is how do we manage the bull calves in the dairy herd. India is now having that problem with buffalo because they're no longer using buffalo for draft animals. They're using tractors. So they've now got a challenge about how they manage these properly. So it's similar issues, but we're just at different parts of the journey. So how do we implement the principles and practices? Well, SAI Platform develops a lot of materials that help members implement. Some are a long way down the journey. Some are miles down. In fact, I have to keep reminding some of my members, you know, you started this journey 9 years ago. These guys are just starting now, and we've got to recognise and try and support each at their different stages of the journey. And what we've done is we've developed a partnership guide on sustainable sourcing. How do companies actually embed sustainable sourcing processes into their company purchasing policies? So we've done that, and we've also developed one of the cross-cutting committees is about how to engage with farmers. And what I find with a lot of companies is people working in sustainability in their companies have actually come into that role from a corporate and social responsibility reporting role and not from a farming background. They don't understand this. So these sorts of materials really help them get started. Where do I start? How do I talk to a farmer about sustainability? We heard what Kim just said about, you know, how do you approach farmers? It's so important because we have a real opportunity here. In my view, sustainability is about making your business more efficient, and I'm doing it all the time with my business, and other businesses are doing it all the time. And this is our message. We can take this through, but what we've got to do is provide the materials that support members, take them through that process. The other one is whether we want to measure impact. So much of what we're doing, we don't need to go, as Kim said, don't need to go and do a full LCA every time. Identify some indicators that tell whether you're going in the right direction. You want to know that. and you want to know if you're not as well. But what this SPA is, Sustainability Performance Assessment, is about quantifying, using indicators, whether you're going in the right direction. And the beef and the dairy group were very instrumental there because they had the role of doing the welfare indicators, because that wasn't covered in the other ones. They were very crop-based. So looking at those, how can we come up with 9 indicators that cover all the criteria and principles of welfare? So it's finding simple ways and cross-cutting ways to do that. So the SPA document, it's in version 2. These are constantly being updated as we learn as well, and as our members learn. Our members are involved in other initiatives, and they bring that to our table and share that with their colleagues from other businesses. And then what I'm going to talk to you a bit more about today is the sustainability assessment. How do we actually know if we're moving forward? A very input-based measurement, but it's starting the journey, and that's so important. It's about how do I know if my farm is operating sustainably, and more importantly, where do I need to put a little bit more effort to try and get myself there to where I want to be as a business. The FSA, as we call it, is a simple tool, and a farmer can do it. He can do a questionnaire, or you can take someone onto the farm. The way it's implemented in different supply chains is up to that supply chain. It is the model that can be taken forward. It's a multi-use tool that covers all the pillars of sustainability, which is so important. And if you want it, there's a scoring mechanism there as well, if you wanted to. But for some, it'll be just a matter about going through the process. I've written farm assurance schemes for the UK before, and I've had farmers, they'd never say it in a public meeting, but they'd come up to me after the meeting and say, Brian, you know, this is good stuff. You know, it makes me look at my business in a different way. And if we're doing that, we're starting them on that journey. We're getting them moving forward. The FSA, was actually developed by our crop-based industries members, and that's where it all started, because maybe not so much in beef and definitely not so much in dairy, but on the crop side, the farmers were selling to multiple different customers. And the customers were each coming onto their farm to assess, go through a sustainability assessment. And the farmer was just saying, having too many people coming up the drive. So what the companies have done is said, look, let's see if we can find a way where we can align our criteria. So if a farmer has undertaken this piece of work for Unilever, well, let's recognise that as Mondelez or Kraft and say, okay, if he's done it for Unilever, we recognise and get that mutual recognition. How can we make this more efficient? And that's where it came from. And you look at the organisations that are up there doing that. They don't take these sorts of initiatives lightly. They want to get it right and they want to make sure it's robust. So that's the work they've been doing. So we're taking that model that was developed by the crop guys and implementing it through using it on the beef side. And, excuse me, and what was happening is we've got all our members seeking the sustainable production, but all had very many different ways of doing it. Different people going up the drive, different certification schemes, different criteria. But when you look at them, 80% of those criteria were the same, even more sometimes. And this is what was getting to the farmers, saying, you know, these guys are coming up saying, the guy yesterday asked me the same question, can't you guys get sorted? And we've got members who are also producers, and they drive this process as well. They say, we'd love one size that can come up and actually answer the question of all our customers. So what we've developed is the Farm Sustainability Assessment. And basically what we've also done is collaborated with ITC, a UN organisation, who have developed a fantastic website that allows you to compare different schemes. And I'll come back onto that a bit in a minute. But basically what we've got, the company-owned scheme or another scheme they've adopted. They might be using an external scheme, or they've got their own, and they're each trying to find, and we've got the on-farm assessment tool, whatever form they're using it in. Okay? What the ITC tool allows you to do is to benchmark. And you can say, how does my company reference compare to what's being used out there by other organisations? You can actually make the comparison. And here's an example of what it looks like on the ITC website, and it's pretty basic, but you don't have to use it in this format. You can actually use a spreadsheet model, or another thing you can do, and it's what SAI Platform specialises in, is like the Intel Inside. Take it, embed it into your scheme. We don't need SAI promotion or anything like that. Embed it into your own company scheme, but note that SAI has been involved in the development of that, because that will give the confidence to others to say that this is within your own company program. But what it allows you to do is benchmark against over 130 different schemes. And our beef group has got together, collected all the schemes they've been involved with, and have submitted these to ITC with the owner's permission. And actually what you can go and do now is actually compare your scheme as it is now, whatever you're using as your sourcing scheme, and compare it with over 130 different ones. And there's several beef ones on there at the moment. Let's get more on there, and let's see how they compare. Let's learn from each other, because you might learn your company scheme is mostly advanced than others, or you find your company scheme might need to do a little bit more in some areas to be comparable. It's not about ratcheting up and making it harder. It's about actually making sure you are aligned, because that gives the credibility for the SAI inside to actually allow customers, as they come up the drive, oh, you've done it for them and you've compared to them, fine, we'll move on. We are very much work in development. I'm not expecting you to read this at the moment, but this is exactly what we're working with, a spreadsheet at the moment as a beef group, debating what criteria need to be in our beef FSA, and we're working on this at the moment. Some bits might be a little bit specific. We've got too many questions in there at the moment. We're trying to reduce the number of questions. You get a chocolate brownie if you lose a question. It's about making it relevant, meaningful and applicable, so it can be taken on farm and doesn't take you a full day to implement. And this is what the spreadsheet version looks like, and this is SPA2 for, it's not SPA2, FSA2, sorry, too many acronyms, for the crop side. And what you've got here is the principles and the guidance and the question, but what you've also got down here is a scoring system, should you wish to use it. And that's up to the individual supply chain. A supply chain might say, look, we want all of you at bronze level in the next 2 years. Great. How do you use it? It's there if you want to use it. So there's 3 different levels of questions. You might have picked that up from the previous slide. There's essential questions, and that's basically the no-brainers. They're the things that we need to do. We know it need to be in there, like labour and things like that. Basic questions are the fundamental issues on sustainable farming. Let's get them in there and let's use them and make sure that they're part of the process, coming from the principles and practices that SAI have developed. And then you have advanced questions, and I've referenced the farm assurance programs I've developed in the past. We always had must questions and we always had should questions. The must questions are what you must achieve now. The shoulds are still going to be assessed, but it's an indicator where we're going in the future. This should in the future will become a must. So you can actually have the advanced questions in there. So there's nothing to stop an individual member of SAI or anyone using this to have this as a benchmark scheme and then add further criteria if you wish. But we don't want to see a ratcheting up as much, too much. So you've got bronze membership, which is 100%. To achieve that, you get 100% of the essential questions. This has been done for the crop side. 75% of the minimum basics. 100% for silver of essential and basic questions, less than 75% advanced questions. But if you want your gold, you've got to get at least 75% of the max of the minimum advanced questions. So that's just how it's been worked out for the crops processing going forward. And what you can also do is when you compare on the ITC website your scheme with other schemes, this particular example here is comparing the SAI Platform Self-Assessment version 2 with Fair Trade International and EU Organic Farming, for example, and it shows where the strengths of the different schemes are. So you may want to use this as a benchmark approach to say, actually, we might need to put a little bit more effort in here if we're going to say we're aligned with fair trade policy or whatever. So it's a very pictorial way of seeing how you can improve as an organisation, should you need to, with your particular supply chain. And another step is, as a farmer, you can have total control over your data, and you can actually demonstrate who you'd like to share your data with. So you can actually use this, put it back in your control, instead of being a price taker to a degree. You're a bit more proactive about, actually, I'm going to make my data available to these companies and they might want to purchase from me. So it's about being more proactive and being more advanced in how you're promoting your product. So adding value, look, it's about getting started. We're all on a journey. Some haven't started, some are started. And this is our opportunity to take the principles and practices of sustainable beef production that we've done and getting them on the journey and using this farm sustainability assessment as a recognised way to assess how we're going in sustainable beef. It gives us that consistent language to use, and we've heard about it when we talk about sustainability. So many times people talk to us about sustainability and just mean environment. We've got to get the beef sector working and talking the same language, as we've heard through this conference, but here a bit we're preaching to the converted. What about all those out there who aren't appreciating the good work we're doing? We're also trying to address sustainable feed production, which is an important part of our work, and what we've done previously is taken from the principles and practices of arable crops from SAI Platform. Let's take those and embed them into our beef program. What we've found is the arable crop program, we don't just feed cattle grains, we also feed them pastures and forage crops. So we're trying to adapt it to make it more viable for the beef sector to use in a relevant way. And you can get different levels of attainment should you wish that. Should that be something you would like to take on as a farmer or your supply chain might agree to achieve. And you've got the different award levels. So where are we at when we put our heads together? Okay, we've launched our principles and practices in November 2013. We're hoping to have the first draft of our farm sustainability assessment done by January next year. And then what we want to do is we want to go into a consultation phase. We want to share it with others. As I said, it's predominantly European at the moment, but hey, we're happy to listen to whoever wants to share their thoughts with us about how we can make this more useful for the beef sector going forward. We're going to start implementing it on our own members' farms as well. Get feedback from the farmer. It's so important. We have associations as members of our group so that we're making sure we capture their input at the early stage, but at the same time, we want to go and use it. Let's get the feedback. Let's get these guys on the journey with us, and let's see what we can learn, because what we want to do in Q3 2015 is start using this as an implementable process. So the journey continues. We are on a journey. It's not a destination. We've all still got a lot to learn. And, you know, we've got a lot of key delivery points along the way, and I think that's the way we look at it, and we've got to be able to demonstrate our progress, and I think that's so important. But if you'd like to get on board and join with us and give us feedback, ask more about it, we'd love to hear from you, because that's the way we work. SAI platform developments aren't developed and kept to the membership. They're on the website. They're made available to everyone. And that's the way, the philosophy behind the work that SAI platform does.